This is the Dawn Diaries. Here I share my insides the same I would in an online diary. Now it's time for your dose of Dawn.
The episode you're about to watch is a complete switch, and now I am the one interviewing Kathy. And I looked her up when I was searching through podcasts, and I was looking for just escorting, how many podcasts were related to sex work. And she came up, and when I started looking through her podcast, it was a lot on not just escorting. Her podcast is actually a very general story of other people's sex lives. And we cover how she got into doing a podcast in the first place. It was really cool that she wanted to come on because I don't have a large audience. And I don't know, I guess we hit it off, and she's just such a nice person that she was nice enough to come and talk. And she says she loves talking. You'll hear what she has to say about how her podcast got started. I didn't say this ahead of time to her, but I wanted the podcast to be less interviewee and more of discussion. So I do kind of chime in sometimes. I rather sit back and listen, but I also think that it's nice to have like real discussions about things. So we get into like the fetishes that are on her show. We get into specific fetish that really stuck out to me when I first saw her come on. She doesn't show her face. She'll explain why. She likes to just show the neck down. We talk about her. Lately I've noticed that there's been a lot of Aries women in my life, and I find them to be so inspiring and so powerful. I'm not even sure why these days I'm attracting a lot of Aries, because there is a person recently that I met, Aries woman, another person I recently met, Aries woman, and now Kathy happens to be Aries. So this whole fiery sign has been like a big presence in my life. And I just find, I don't know, I really look up to them. I'm pretty much the opposite of Aries. So they just been around a lot, and I just felt like yeah, I'm wondering why that could be the case right now. Maybe because I read about Aries before, and they're just so any research that I've done on Aries women, it's basically comes down to they can do anything a man can do. And I couldn't agree more with that about Aries women. They're just so driven. They're such leaders. They're alpha. She is definitely those qualities. We get a little bit into that. I don't know. I just find her to be really fun, and she's very talkative, and she's very nice. And the last thing, she doesn't do podcasts too often. So that's also a really cool thing, that the last podcast she was in has been a while. She doesn't really go into herself that much during her podcast. So she wants her audience to come over here to check out what she has to say. We didn't get into super, super personal stuff about her. I was following her advice on not to write anything down because it can sound stiff. And I was like, oh, you know what? I can't like think on the spot. I can't talk on the spot. And she's like, oh, just give it time. So that's what I'm doing now, is like learning how to just spontaneously talk without a script. I was very curious about her sexual history. We go into that. About her sexual past. So we go into that. We go into dating. We go into careers. We go into her background. We go into generational things. I don't know. I just find her really cool. And so tune in. I think you'll have a lot of laughs the way we had a lot of laughs. I hope you enjoy. Yeah, no, you're good. You're good to go. So no, I was gonna tell you that that's actually happened before where I've met a guy and they want to know all about you. Like this is like from an appointment, right? I meet a guy, they want to know all about you. As soon as they're friends with you on Facebook, they don't even like you anymore. It's the weirdest thing. Like, I'm like, is there something about my Facebook that's particularly offensive that you don't even call me anymore? Like, yeah. So that's happened to me before.
I know, you just gave them all the information. They got it. They formed weird opinions that might not be true. That's why like a lot of that stuff isn't so great nowadays, because we're not like, I don't know, I think like online or anything online is odd because it's not really real. We're not like bottles of toothpaste. Like you can't just, know everything about us by reading and looking at a picture, So I think it's way better to do everything you can to leave as much for the, for the imagination, and then meet in person, because that's how everybody is very different, like in real life, I think, I don't know. I cannot take pictures. My family will not even put a picture up of me in their house because the camera hates me. But like in real life, if I the whole package isn't bad, but if you saw me in a picture, you'd be like, what the fuck? Same thing if I look at guys online. Half the guys online look so unattractive. Right, but if you met them in person, they're talking, if they have a swag, like it's so much different. So I think it's really good to separate a lot of that stuff. I think less is more when it comes to certain things. If you're in the business like you are, I mean, I have a podcast and I want to drive traffic there and people are interested in who I am because I don't give a lot of that information up there. I think a lot of my listeners will listen to this podcast because you're going to be asking me questions, but I try to keep stuff about me out of my calls because my calls are about other people, just like what you're doing on your show, right?
Yeah, and that was one of my first questions to ask you was like, have you been in someone else's podcast before?
Yeah, well, I started out to do this because I was friends with comedians. Like before I did this, I worked in entertainment and I worked mostly with comedians, like big major comedians. And one comedian I was really good friends with was an up and coming comedian at the time named Robert Kelly. And he had a podcast and he had me go on once and they decided to set me up with the co-host, this guy, Joe Derosa, and now this is very out there. It was on Opie and Anthony. It was a very controversial podcast episode. And it was my first podcast episode. They set me up on a date with this comedian, Joe Derosa. I went on it. We videotaped some of it and it went kind of horribly wrong. And then they had me back on to discuss it. And he flipped out and it was this whole thing. And they called it like the best podcast ever episode. I mean, it's out there.
That's cool.
It's online. They went on like Opie and Anthony. And I was like really excited because I had just started Twitter and everything. And I was about to start my podcast. And I had people like, I had death threats and tons of, and I was like, this is like fantastic. I'm kind of like any kind of publicity is good publicity kind of person. So it was like every side. And when I listened back to it, I was super obnoxious on it, but that was like my first time I was ever on a podcast. And then Robert's like, Kathy, you love to talk and you love to do it. You should start a podcast. I'll tell you everything to do. He told me everything to buy. I just listened to him. And I don't know if I told you this before, but people have heard it on my show, but like, I really didn't know what my show was going to be about. I knew I wanted to help people with their problems because I love dissecting things like that, people's issues and stuff and people in general. And so I didn't want anyone to know I was doing it because I thought it would suck. Like, seriously, that's the only reason why I didn't put it out on my Facebook. But I needed people to call in because I wanted it to be a call and advice show. So I went to Craigslist and I was going to post on a regular section, but it like cost money. And I was like so cheap. And like I said, I thought my show was going to suck that I put it on the personal.
Oh, you mean cost money where though?
Like an ad. I wanted to post an ad like, hey, podcast looking for callers, right? At this, now people just email me. I don't have to go out looking for people. But in the beginning, the first couple of years, I had to post ads and people responded to me to be on my show. So how was I going to find those people, right? I needed to post an ad. So I was like, I'll put it on Craigslist. But the regular like community boards at the time were, you had to pay for them. And I was like, I don't know if I was.
Oh, that's what you're talking about. In Craigslist, there are payments that have to be made in some of the sections. Yeah. Okay.
Only free place was the personals.
The only free place.
Yeah. There. Literally, it was like hitting gold. I mean, I got like 10 emails and it was like the craziest shit. It was like one guy, like, I'm fucking my best friend's brother's wife and he's the sheriff in town. And another guy's like, I love to date women and I love women, but I could only get off on going down on them. And I mean,
and
it was like,
that's the guy in your trailer, the one that said she has no idea, that guy, right?
Yeah. And another one, the BDSM, to rehide your whips and chains. I mean, those were literally the first 5 podcasts I taped. I didn't have the name of my show. I didn't know what it was. I just knew I was going to have a call and advice show. And what my friend gave me the advice to tape a bunch before I put anything up. So like I said, I didn't have the name. I didn't know sort of the concept, except it was going to be a call and advice show. And then when I got all those emails from those guys and it turned into be all this like crazy sex stuff, I was like, oh, that's when I realized, oh, we're going to do it strictly anonymous. And then I'm going to be, and then it all came together. It was kind of backwards, but like.
Yeah, I looked up Robert Kelly.
You do?
Yeah. So for people who don't know his podcast, what's the name of his podcast?
Oh, he's You Know What Dude podcast. It's really evolved since I was on it. I was on it like maybe
6 years ago.
6 years ago, like 7 or 8. But he was only on with Joe Derosa. That was his co-host, and they did it together. And it was him and Joe. Now it's like him and 4 other comedians at all times, and they're sort of rotating. And it's like a guys podcast. It's super successful, and I was on that a bunch of times after my show too. I just haven't been on it for a while, but we're on the same network. My podcast is on Laugh Button Network with him and all these other podcasts with comedians.
Have you ever done stand-up yourself?
No, I would not. No, I'm shy with stuff like that. Like, it's weird. I could walk into any place and talk to any person, but put me in front of people, like standing there, like, no, I can't. It's like a fear of like public speaking, like in that format. No way. So I can never. And let me tell you, stand-up comedians and doing comedy is very different than like just being funny off the cuff or telling a good story. I worked besides, when I say I worked for comedians, there was one time where I worked for a huge comedy festival that took place in Aspen, Colorado. And I was a talent executive. I went out and scouted talent. And I mean, it is really hard. It is not what you think. And that's why Howard Stern does really good interviews with comedians, because he really breaks it down. And so the average person should know that you can't just go be a stand-up comedian if you think you're fucking funny, because it's so much more than that. So no, I never did it. It's my biggest fear. I know a lot of them. I totally respect it, because I think that that's the hardest gig imaginable, right? Scariest.
I think so too. And there's a lot of writing involved too. You have to be a good writer.
Sure.
Yeah.
Because when I got in the business, I wanted to represent actors, and I just found them to be such a drag and sort of boring. Their job is to be other people and get into that. Whereas comedians are so complex and interesting as people themselves that I just enjoyed it so much more working with that kind of talent.
Do you have a favorite comedian?
I loved Louis C.K. I like that kind. I like Louis C.K. I love Dave Chappelle. I like anyone that's really sort of saying really smart things and teaching you things. And I don't know, but
teaching things, yeah.
I mean, my sense of humor has no boundaries. Like, to me, if it's funny, it's fucking funny. I don't care if it's about molestation. Some people are like, oh, I draw the line at this. I don't draw the line at anything if it's funny. So I like, a lot of different, but then I like Seinfeld, and he's not really teaching anything. He's just making observations about nothing, but he's brilliant. So I just like funny people.
Yeah, she's got, I think you said Lucy, right? She got in trouble with politics from saying something too off the cuff.
Okay.
Yeah.
He was the one that got
I'm thinking of someone else then. I'm thinking of someone
trouble for jerking off. He's like, doesn't exist anymore.
Okay. All right. So what did you want your podcast to be originally before it turned into what it turned into?
Honestly, and I was explaining this to someone else the other day, like, for me, because I love to I like helping people first and foremost. I love that. I love to pick apart things and analyze things. And I'm not somebody that people you don't want to come to me like when you want someone to feel sorry for you. Like, I'm not like that kind of person, but I'm really good at problem solving. I like that. Right. And what happened to me is that I was always sort of doing that and pushing that part of myself onto my friends. And when somebody's not really at that place in their life where they want help with their problem, right? A lot of times people are not ready yet to move on or figure shit out. And I would be like the annoying friend, like trying to shove my opinions down their throat and get them motivated to like move on and whatever. So I figured like I'm going to do, but I have that in me and I like to do that. So if I do that as my show, right? I'm going to meet people. The only people that are going to call into my show are going to be people that are really ready for what I enjoy doing. And therefore I won't be annoying my friends with it anymore. Right. So I just wanted to do like what I said, like help people when they're at that time in their life where they need sort of help being pushed in a different direction. And, they've needed an ear for an hour and a half to like analyze things. Cause that's what I like to do.
And that's probably what the whole talent scouting was about too. Was also helping people get their career off the ground?
Yeah, that was a different part of me. I did booking, I did talents, and that was like another part of me that I'm like super aggressive and I don't really feel bad about hounding people. I used to call myself, like my middle name was like make shit happen. Like I like a challenge, make shit happen. I like to go after things. So that was a different part of my personality, but I am really interested in people. So yeah, for working with talent, it was working with people and, it was a little bit different than the typical 9-to-5 job, but it was, an office gig,
So I would consider you like an alpha female then. For sure. For sure. Yeah. So when you had your first calls and you started realizing that the angle was going to be about sex.
Yes.
But
I have to tell you, okay, it's not like Kathy, quote unquote, K, fake name. It's not like I was somebody that never talked about sex and then all of a sudden this was dropped to my lap. The funny thing is I was always somebody that was really open about sex, always loved to talk about it because especially in my days, I'm really old, right? Back in my days, nobody talked about it. And so to me, it was like super funny and great. It was so easy to like push the boundaries and be weird and different. All you had to do was like talk about sex and people were like, what the fuck? Because it was just a different time. So it wasn't like.
That's all you had to do, yeah.
And it turned out that way. That's not what I sought out, but it wasn't like it didn't really fit with who I was,
Yeah.
I was
what is your sexual experience like before, what was your sexual experience before 18? And then what was your sexual experience like early 20s? But we'll start before 18. We'll say before 18.
I'm a non-drinker, okay? I haven't drank for maybe 16, 17 years now. So the better question would be, what was your sexual experience like before you quit drinking and what was it like after? Because that's the biggest difference.
Are you I guess you can't say AA, but you are sober basically. You're not drinking ever again in your life.
Yeah, but I don't go to AA. I did it in the beginning. And I have to say, like, thank God for it because I didn't know what the fuck was I going to do. I lived in New York. I was a party animal. This was my whole life, and now what do I do without this? That's a whole other story, but I use it for a little bit, but like for me personally, and I think there's a small percentage of people that are like me in this sense, is that I'm very rebellious. So if you tell me every day I can't do something, it only makes me want to do it more, right? So going to those meetings and talking about not drinking, all I wanted to do was go out and fucking drink. And I was like, I just didn't want to do it. So I felt like that would be the worst thing for me. And I was able to stay successful and not drink ever again since. So it worked for me, though I do think it's like a great program and it really works for a different type of person. But for me, I didn't really like it after a while and I just didn't want to be in those meetings for the rest of my life. I wanted to quit drinking and move on with things. And quitting drinking is very hard. And it's not like the movies where you quit drinking and everything's fine. I mean, it was years and years, but we're not going to like get into that. It's a whole other story. But, it definitely changed my sex life. That's for sure. Quitting drinking, right?
Let's hear the differences.
Well, I was always, in my day, girl, I always feel like I was born in the wrong generation or I was like ahead of my time because I was much more like, okay, when I was younger, I didn't need to be in a relationship to have sex with people. Like I did whatever the fuck I wanted. I tried to have open relationships. I couldn't wait to have sex. I was into sex. I had booty calls. Like I said, I tried all that stuff. I wanted to do it all, try it all. I was like a train wreck because I was drinking also at the time. So there was a lot of acting out and there was a lot of shit that went down that wasn't cool, right? And but that's who I was when I was younger. And when I was younger, I would be considered slutty, right? Like that, I was like slutty. Like most girls didn't have sex with guys unless they were dating them. That's what like the olden days were all about. You know, you're living in a very different time.
Samantha from Sex and the City.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah, it's funny. Yeah, totally. I guess. I don't know. But I mean, I was really young. I mean, I lost my virginity at like 15. And I couldn't wait to. I was always very curious. I just wanted to do it all. I mean, I was a 3-input girl. I was the one who asked my boyfriend, like, oh, can you like put it in my ass? Like, I was the one that went for that first time because I just like said I wanted to experience.
You wanted to know.
Yeah. I was open. I was really horny. I think that, you know, a little bit of my addiction, you know, listen, nobody's like drinking a ton of alcohol and has those kind of things if they're not running away from something, you know? So I think I had issues, and anything that could take myself away from my brain and what was really going on, like, was great for me. So sex was a great escape. And so I was horny a lot of the time, and I slept with a lot of people, and I was very guy-like in my sexuality for them. Now I would be like everybody else, but back then it was just, like I said, a different time.
Yeah, because there's so many people where that's like normal now, like whereas probably back then, yeah, it was very strict.
Yeah, girls.
Traditional, and I feel terrible for women like that grew up in these centuries that were like, because there's so many different types of like girls that want to like explore their sexuality in a completely different way than another girl would, you know?
Yeah, I don't think
I feel so terrible for that generation, you know? They had to grow up that way for sure. Yeah.
I don't think there's going to be so much of a Me Too movement 20 years from now when you guys grow up, because I think women have more of a voice, and I think women, it's just a different scene. You know, I think there's a lot of these stories coming up nowadays because when I was younger, women didn't think that they could speak up for themselves. They weren't in charge of their sexuality. They did things that they didn't want to do. I was always like, I'm so glad I'm me, because I was like never taken advantage of from my standpoint. I always did whatever the fuck I wanted. Right. But I do know that a lot of my girlfriends would come to me and be like, oh my God, look, I wound up in the shower and I fucked this guy and I didn't even like him. And I'd be like, why didn't you just say no? You know, but it was just a different time and women didn't feel like they could do stuff like that. But I think it's different now. So like I said, 20 years from now, you guys are not going to be having these stories about men, and you're not going to be as much of victims to that kind of stuff as we were. You know, I wasn't, because like I said, it was acting out a little bit, but I felt like I was in charge of it, and I was taking it back for whatever reason, and I did what I wanted to do. So I don't have any regrets.
Well, you know, like as the expression goes, like the way you do one thing is the way you do everything. And like, I just feel like you have that alpha energy anyways. So you're obviously going to be the driving force on like how you want to express yourself sexually too. So I think that's just part of your personality. What's your sign? What are you?
I'm an Aries.
Fire sign. I knew that. I should have guessed. That would have been more impressive to guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then also like I think for Aries, like they have to be attracted to the person too. So that's something that if that's not there, you're not gonna be interested. So
but I hate to say it, but that's where the alcohol came in. I fucked a lot of guys.
Oh, that you weren't attracted to because alcohol made you feel attracted to them, right?
Well, it just made me feel like blackout. I was a blackout drinker, so I'd wake up and I'd be like, and I never really. It wasn't so much strangers. It was always my guy friends. Like guys must have been really happy to be my friend because they just know that they could go out with me. We're drinking and they might get laid, right? Because I wouldn't.
Right.
Even in my blackouts, I wasn't going home with strangers to strange houses. I was like banging my friends and a lot of people. It was a lot of, like I said, acting out. And in one sense, I say, yeah, I have no regrets. But, you know, do I do those things? Did I do those things after I quit drinking? No, it was a very different story. And then.
Okay. What age when you stopped drinking?
34.
34. Oh, so there's a lot before that then.
Yeah.
The thing that sticks out to you a lot, like in those memories from, because I know you said blackout, but like, what are like things that like you got yourself any sticky situations where you're like, okay, maybe I went a little too far or anything like that? Doesn't sound like it.
And with the drinking, that's why I stopped. I think that when you're drinking, even as like a blackout drinkers know there's something that takes over you. No matter how drunk you are, you still don't do things that are like crossing the line, that where you wake up and you're like, what the fuck? Like I said, like for some reason I'm blackout, but I'm still not going home with strangers. But what happened towards the end was I was doing things in my blackouts that was horrifying to me. Like telling off my boss in the bar that I worked, like trying to fuck my best friend's boyfriend, like stuff that was not me. And that's when I started to realize like, oh, this is like, I don't have control of myself and I had to quit. But I got myself, sorry, let me just climb that. A lot of sticky situations. Hello? Oh,
yeah, I got you.
A lot of situations, but I have to say I had like this, there's this part of me that loves like a good story, you know? And so for me, it was like, what a great story. Like, can you believe this? You know, I don't know. I always look at things like that. Like, I tell a funny story, and I've said it on my show before about like being in a health food store in Manhattan. And I walked in, and the guy's like, I told him, oh, I have some stomach issues. Do you have any supplements for me? And he's like, oh, yeah, come over here. And he goes behind me and he starts like working on my stomach. And he's like, oh, you know, I could give you like a massage and I could get rid of it. So like 10 minutes later, I'm in the back room with this guy, okay, a huge South African guy. And I'm laying down on this bed and he has me like to the side and he's like rubbing my stomach and then he's like rubbing here. And then he tells me I look like a model and I don't look like a model. So that's when I know I'm in fucking trouble. Okay. And like for 1 second, I was like, oh my God, like this is so interesting that I'm like about to be raped. And 10 minutes ago, I was like walking down the street. Like that's the crazy part of my personality. And then I
like excitement, maybe the excitement.
Yeah, there's something about it that's like, this is like, I like step out of myself and I look at the situation. I'm like, and there's something interesting about it because it's so absurd. And then of course I was like, get the fuck off me. And I got out and that was that. But that part of myself exists. So, you know, my sticky situations are like great stories.
Which podcast did you share this with? Some story that inspired you to say yours?
Yeah, well, you know what? On my Patreon, I have a Patreon. It's patreon.com/strictly anonymous podcast. And there I do Q&As on a monthly Q&As. And I ask people that are there to ask any questions. And most of the time they're asking questions about me. And it just prompts.
Oh, yes.
Because I don't talk about me on my podcast. You know, it's more, I really get to know somebody else. Like I did my podcast with you. I loved our episode. People really responded well to it. And I got
good.
So it was on my Patreon Q&As. And I think sometimes little stuff like that comes up on my show, but not so much.
Yeah. So what about in terms of outrageous sex? Anything you want to share with that? Like,
oh God.
That applies to you? Because in my opinion, your podcast has other people's really not outside the box, but just out there, you know? And I wondered if you had something similar.
Yeah, like I told this story on my podcast recently, on one of my Q&As, because I think it was like a funny story. This is another one of those things that I'm like outside of myself. But I was like out drinking with some friends there was a bar called the Limelight in the city that was like very hardcore and big. And there was like some VIP party that I was a part of, and they were giving out free Jaeger. Now I was never a beer drinker. I was like vodka, tequila, straight up girl. But this was like Jaeger. So I was drinking a lot of it and I got really sick. And in the Limelight, this club that used to be there, they call it like Rock and Roll Church on Sunday nights. It was like an old church, but they turned into a club. It was like the best club ever. And I was in one of the staircases. They had millions of them. And my head was like spinning. And I was all by myself. And I was like in the stairwell and some guy comes up to me. Now this is like, when I say Rock and Roll Church, Sunday nights was like rock and roll night. This was the 80s. Hair bands, like it was like heavy metal night there, right? Everyone has long hair, but this guy had short hair. And I remember in my drunkenness thinking, oh, okay, like this guy's so nice. I see him, he looks normal. He's like, oh, helping me throw up. And he's holding my hair back. And I keep like telling him, oh, thank you so much. Like, don't leave. Like, and he's rubbing my back. And then at some point I realized like, he's really begging me to throw up. Like, I mean, he's really, you know what I'm saying? I'm like drunk, but something clicks in me. Like, he really wants me to throw up. And I turn around and look at him. And when I finally catch focus, he was jerking off. He was like into girls throwing up, and his pants were down and his dick was out.
God, I can't believe that's a thing. I didn't know that was a thing.
Me neither. Yeah, so I was like, what the fuck? And he ran, and then I tried to get my friends, but that was like a funny story. You know, I don't know.
Wow. But it's funny that that it is someone you didn't know, that ended up being the most, not, I mean, to me that sounds like the most, that would be the most of the most for me, like in terms of sexual experience. Yeah.
Another story about a sexual experience of what I did. It was same thing, Limelight. I was with two guy friends of mine, and somehow I had just moved into the city. I just had an apartment, and my friend was like, oh, this girl here. Now I'm drunk, right? It's the end of the night. I'm like practically blacked out. But I do remember my friend telling me like, oh, this girl needs a place to stay. Could she crash at your place? I'm like, sure. Now I had just recently moved into New York. When I moved in, I was in my 20s. You know, I had roommates, and we had a 3-bedroom, but the wall was not built yet, right? So I had one roommate and her friend sleeping, and this is important to the story, sleeping in the living room, right? That we have to walk through to get to my bedroom. So I said, sure, let the girl come over. You know, when you're young, you could let anyone crash, do whatever. So that guy, my two guy friends, and this girl come into my room. Now, all of a sudden, the one guy who I know and I had fooled around with before starts fooling around with me, and so does the girl. So now I'm fooling around with the both of them. This is my first experience girl on girl action, right? So now my other friend, now you have to understand, my roommate and her friend, they tell me the next day they see everything that's going on. They see 3 people go in, they see one person walk out, right? So the one friend who's not in on the action walks out. The girl and the guy, we all have sex, everything happens. And it was gross to me. Like in the morning I woke up, I could smell like her pussy smelled bad. Like I could smell her in my hair. It was like really disgusting. And she wasn't there, right? But I hear talking outside my room. And I'm like, what the fuck is that? And I get up and I walk out and I look, and she is sitting there with my roommates, my new roommates, okay? And like they're all sitting in like a little circle, and her hair, she had hair extensions. She's got like half her hair out of her head, and she's like brushing her hair extensions, and she's like having conversations with my roommates. And I come out like, well, what the fuck is going on? All I want her to do, because this looks so bad, right? I'm like a new roommate. And so we finally got her out. She wouldn't leave, but it was like, obviously I had just had a threesome in my apartment with my new roommate.
Well, did you feel like she was judging you though?
No, they were young. No, my roommates, no, I never copped to anything. They were like, what happened? Like we saw 3 people go in, one person go on. Why would this girl leave? We finally got her like in a cab and got her out. I had another roommate who I actually like brought her down to the laundry room. I'm like, oh, I just got to tell you, I can't believe it. Like I slept with this girl who was the first. And she's like, oh my God, I've always wanted to try that. So she was cool. I told her, and that was that. But no, I didn't feel like they were judging me, but they definitely knew what was going on, but didn't know. And, you know.
It was just like an elephant in the room, you know.
Oh my God, literally her hair out of her head, and she's like brushing it. I was horrified because she was very odd, and you know, and she just didn't know how to leave. And and my friend told me way later that he had set the whole thing up. So there you go. That's why I don't drink.
Oh.
Yeah, she didn't need a place to stay. He knew she was a lesbian, supposedly. She didn't want him to fool around with her. She only wanted to be with me, and he was only with me, and he had hooked her up. And so they set that whole thing up, in my drunken mind, I didn't know what was going on, really. I believed him.
Oh, wow. Oh.
Yeah. So, I mean, but like, I see stories like that as like kind of funny. You know what I mean?
Yeah, of course. Like, I think it's nice to have notches, in my opinion. Yeah. I like that. I like having the experience that probably a lot of people don't, you know? Like, that's a nice thing, you know? Because you got to live a little.
For sure. A lot of people are always like, oh, you're so non-judgmental. It's like, because I've been there, done that, most things myself. Like, who am I to judge? Like, I was an alcoholic. I quit drinking. I fucked around a lot. I've had a lot of one-night stands. I've had terrible relationships. Like, I've sort of done a lot of things. And what I like about having done those things is that I can help other people and I can relate. Like, nothing gets me more excited when I have a girl on my show that has an alcohol problem, because I'm like right there with them.
Oh, yes. I could totally see that.
Yeah. So I feel like it also helps me do what I do because I've done a lot of things and I never judged myself. I don't judge myself for doing them, and I don't judge other people either.
Yeah, when we talked about the sex work industry, I was wondering if before that, I know you've talked to other escorts and stuff like that, but I wondered if you had like preconceived notions or a common myth that you hear all the time about sex work. I wonder, like, were your curiosity piqued about it as well? If you could like tell us about that? That'd be great.
Hey, it's funny because I remember when I went to Paris and I was on like the bus tour and they were going around and they passed by this one castle and they were talking about how this like one famous like escort, hooker, prostitute, whatever you want to call her back in the day, like took all the really wealthy mans to town and took all their money and got the castle to themselves. And I like stories like that always fascinate. There's something about that woman that is very interesting to me, like those old history stories. So I think I always had a curiosity and interest in it. I remember one of my friends telling me that one of our mutual friends, and I think I spoke about this on your episode or on others, that she started escorting. And I was like, one thing I remember really thinking and was weird, she told me that, she had to like fuck guys sometimes that had like really bad breath. And I was like, I don't know why that horrified me, but I was like, oh yeah, that's like something you don't think of. Do you know what I mean? Like you could sort of make it seem like a fantasy and there's like this guy and he's got a lot of money and I don't know, some people I think can make it like
they glamorize it. They glamorize it. Yeah.
Whereas that hit me like, whoa, that's like the reality, right? Like maybe you're going to have that bad breath and it's right there and you just got to do what you got to do. But I always have this weird thing, whether you're a heroin addict or an escort, like I am interested in people that take things to the edge and just do shit. And like, I'm not saying it's right or wrong. And sometimes a lot of like, if you're doing heroin, yeah, that's the wrong thing. But like, there is that part of that personality type that I think like, oh, they kind of like had the ball. It just sounds so bad. Like, well, I don't know how to say it correctly, but like,
well, you don't have to censor yourself. You don't have to censor yourself.
Ballsiness to doing that kind of stuff, and I secretly admire that in people. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Did you grow up from a conservative household or like a liberal household?
Well, what do you
like
think?
I guess sexually. No, I have no idea because it could go both ways. There's people that come from conservative and they go wild, or their parents were wild and they became, you know what I mean, like wild. And
yeah, well, this is a really interesting answer, and you're going to be like, oh, my father was a priest.
Oh, that doesn't surprise me because Madonna, she was a Catholic schoolgirl, right? And then rebelled.
Yeah,
that doesn't surprise me at all. That doesn't surprise me.
No. It's the perfect concoction because I didn't have a good upbringing. And, what happens is I think like, I'm a parent now and you have to really be careful if you don't treat your kids properly because whatever, is important to you as a parent, your kids will turn around and fuck you over by really messing with that. So I was acting out a lot with a lot of things because of how repressed I was and how I grew up, and, I was bad. I was thrown out of besides acting out sexually, I was thrown out of high schools. I was really
like they were Catholic high schools or they were regular high schools, like private schools.
Well, one was a Catholic high school. I got thrown out of there. I wasn't Catholic. My father's Lebanese, and because Catholic priests can't be married. My father's religion, they can be.
Oh, they can be. They can. Okay.
But I started out in Catholic high school. Then I went to like a school for people that got kicked out of school, and I was thrown out of there. And then I went to another school like that. And
what were the reasons for getting kicked out?
I didn't want to listen. I had a real problem with authority. I didn't really do the work. Thank God the last school I wound up at was geared towards somebody like me. So they had certain rules, like you had no homework. They were great rules, no homework, no taking books home. Because like we were like the kind of kids that weren't going to anyway. And they had it set up for us to be successful as far as instead of fail, So
that should have been the school I should have gone to.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's weird because they'll say it's a disciplinary thing, and then there's schools that work for kids the opposite. Yeah. What so it's called, there's a word for that. What's the word for those schools? Alternative school or something like that, right?
I had a child study team. I was labeled. I would definitely have been labeled ADHD in this time, but back then they had to label me, do my IQ test and all this stuff, and then place you in a school. And then they tried to kick me out from there. And then I was able to graduate and get a degree from there.
What did you do before being a podcaster? What were your jobs before that?
Comedians, all that kind of stuff.
That was your main thing, right? The talent stuff.
Yeah.
Oh wow. Do you miss it?
Yeah, I mean, I like when you say, oh, you're an alpha, you know, I think as an alpha female, like there's an aggressive part of me. And when I'm able to use that in an area of my life and it's not a bad thing, it's great. You know, like after doing the comedy thing, I booked for a huge organization. I booked speakers, you know, and I had to book everybody who was anybody. And I really did a good job and I liked it. It was like a challenge. You know what I mean? I had to be aggressive. I had to just keep hounding people. I had to not take no for an answer. A lot of times that part of my personality gets myself in trouble in other areas. So it's great to be able to put it into a place that it works. So all that
rewarded.
Yeah, where it's rewarded and needed, you know, and my boss would like, leave me the fuck alone, because it's like, that was a good thing to be. Whereas, you know, when I was working in agencies, it's a little bit more buttoned up and being a little aggressive, even though it was good for the guys, it wasn't so great for me. So, you know, I miss it for that reason, but now I'm a mom and that's a whole other, you know, bunch of challenges and stuff. So, you know, I use my aggressiveness there with my child.
So okay, so I was wondering if we could exchange some of the pantyhose stories, because I have a few of my own, and I saw in your video that I thought you were gonna try it on in your video, but you were just showing. And I was wondering if you had a fascination with it, because I don't know if I have fascination with it, but I've met a lot of men who have. And I just wanted to know if you wanted to swap stories with me.
No, the whole thing. I mean, listen, if you have a thing that you're into pantyhose, we will tape another episode and just put it on my Patreon, because I'm telling you, and we could get you a lot of OnlyFans there if you set up that little section. There are a lot of guys.
There's a lot of guys. Yeah, a lot of guys.
And it's a really easy thing. Now, I just had a guy email me this morning, like, why don't you show yourself in the pantyhose on the things? And I'm like,
that's what I was thinking. When I saw it, I was thinking the same thing.
Yeah, if I cross that line, then it's a totally different thing, you know?
Got it. That's totally valid. And that's what I wanted to know. Yeah.
They did get me into pantyhose, okay? Like, I hated pantyhose. I didn't put them on, but they got me into trying them and everything. And it's like fun.
I knew it. That's what I wanted to know. I figured you must have heard a lot of stories, and now there's a little bit of a fascination with it, right?
Yeah. They have me wearing them. I decided, like, every month I give them like exclusive content. I call them my hosers, the guys that are tuning in, and I'm like, I had them choose what they wanted me to do this month, as long as it's something I would do. Because like I said, I'm not going to put pantyhose. I don't take a picture. I'm never crossing that line where like they're paying for me to sexually turn them on. So, and that's another, like, not that I judge someone like you that does that. That's
yeah. It's just a personal choice. Yeah.
I'd be making a lot more money. But and so the person that won was someone who asked me to wear them every night to sleep for 7 days and for a week, and then, you know, talk about it. So I do stuff like that. It's fun for me. I have so many free pantyhose, but I really think like a girl like you, or, you know, if you set that up and do more of that on, you know, your OnlyFans and really gear it to that audience, there's a big audience out there for it.
God, that's such a good advice. Like, I didn't even think of that when I brought that up. I was just wondering what your stories were. To be honest, like, some of them for me were good and some of them were not so good. Like, one guy in particular, he didn't even want anything else except for like rubbing and all that. And I hated seeing that guy.
Why? Just want to touch your legs?
No, like, kind of like, you know, fool around, like, but nothing entering anything, you know.
So you were like humping and you had pantyhose on? What do you mean?
Yes, that's what why couldn't I just say that? I couldn't even think of the word. Yeah. Dry humping, or what's it called? Dry sex. Yeah, duh. I mean, wake up, Dawn. Yeah, dry sex with pantyhose, and I could not stand that guy. And then there was another guy that I had no problem with, and it was intercourse, and he'd rip the center off, like rip.
Yeah.
Like the feeling of the leg, but I've never really understood that myself, because like if you have like soft legs, I always feel like the legs of women is better than
not for the guys that are into pantyhose. There's pantyhose like make a woman's legs like otherworldly, like perfection. It's like perfect. It's something better than a leg, but it's a leg. and they're very into
That's
the
what
leg.
they're thinking, right? That's what.
Yeah, it's the perfect leg. It's perfection. It's the reason why, and I didn't realize this, it's kind of like the makeup for the legs. It's the reason why a lot of women know to wear legs, because it makes your legs look perfect, right? It holds everything in and makes their skin tone, you know, it's kind of like concealer. And these guys have really taught me that, but I think that that's what they're going to. I have talked to so many pantyhose guys that are into that fetish, and it's really interesting for them to really break it down, you know, but they are all different. And I wonder, like the guy that you hated to see that liked to touch your legs, maybe it was more him, or like, because why would it bother you if you just wanted to touch your legs? Wouldn't that be like an easy call?
Good question. I don't know what it was that bothered me about it so much, but I could not. I hated how I felt afterwards. Always.
Well, why do you think?
That's a great question. I need like a psychologist to break that down. Like, I literally don't know what made me feel so awful. Something about it. Like, oh, you know what it also was?
What?
The ejaculating, like I don't know, like with the nylon, like grossed me out. Like, I don't know.
Even on your nylons? Oh, let me.
Yeah.
I had a guy on, and it was a really fucked up, like controversial episode, because I won't have people.
Controversial. Oh, for who?
Yeah,
for your audience?
Yes, because no, this is what I mean controversial. Like all my stuff is like crazy. Read the title.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
It's illegal, right? And everything is consensual. Like I won't talk to somebody that's like, you know, like a peep.
Like, yes.
Well, I did have a peeping Tom on once. I don't know. We had to talk about that. But so this guy was into that, but he was doing it like with his wife. But what he was doing, his name was Mo. His episodes of it. What he was doing was like jerking off her leg, but he was videotaping the whole thing without her knowing and posting it on video on YouTube, on a YouTube channel. And I was like, you know, on a certain level, I don't feel like I could air this episode because it's not what you're doing, right? But it's that she doesn't know, right? And
she doesn't know.
That's what I mean was controversial. And I was like, listen, I will gladly air this episode after I know that you took it down and you're doing the right thing. And he came to his senses and that happened. That was like the whole story behind it. But there are guys that like to do that. You know, I think maybe the guy with you, it was the guy and not so much the act. Maybe he was creepy.
I hope you're right. Because everything else that every other guy that I've known who liked that, they didn't bother me. So you're probably right about that. And I never made that connection. I guess I made that connection, but I didn't make the connection like fully, obviously.
Yeah, because I made a joke the other day on my Q&A when I was talking, like someone's like, what's the cheesiest like pickup line? I'm like, you know, everything is cheesy until like a really hot guy says the same thing to you and you're like, oh, hey baby. Like, I mean, you know, sometimes it's just you're not attracted to that person doing it, but if like a really hot guy that you were attracted to was doing it or saying that same thing, you'd be like down for things, right? I don't know, you know.
It's possible. It's possible. Yeah, and then there's people that take it, but they take it to such a level. Like there's porn, like I don't know if you know that. Have you seen the porn associated with it?
I have to tell you, a lot of these guys, and just across the board on any fetish, the people try to send me pictures of themselves or links to things, and I never click on any links. I don't want to know anything about the person. I don't do deep dives into any of the fetishes. I do my deep dive by talking to the people, and that's like where my curiosity lies, like in those experiences, but not in the porn. And since I'm not anti-porn, I look at porn sometimes, but like that's not my thing, so I've never looked at it.
That's cool that you set those boundaries for yourself. I like that because it could kind of go a little too far, you know?
Oh yeah. Very early on. Like I remember doing a podcast with one of the first podcasts I was doing with a guy, and I had a co-host in the beginning, and some guy as we're talking, and he was the guy that would like fuck couples and stuff. Like he's like, all of a sudden as I'm talking to him, I'm checking my email and I get this email from him, and it's like 5 pictures of him and the guy having a threesome with this girl. And I see pictures of like this 90-year-old man on the count. And I'm like, what the fuck? And honestly, I have to say, like not seeing people, not knowing what they look like is very helpful. for me, staying very unbiased and non-judgmental. And I think it's good for everybody. And so I now, after those first couple times where I clicked by accident and saw something, I don't. It's very easy on an iPhone. If I see an attachment, I don't scroll down to the bottom. I don't open it. I don't see people. Like, I'm seeing you now because we're doing this, but I don't see people. I never go looking at if somebody like finds me on Instagram, I won't go looking at their stuff on purpose because I don't want to form any kind of judgment at all. That's like with you, I thought you sounded really young. Remember when I was like, how old are you? Because I'm not really, I'm just going by like what I get on the phone, and I like doing things that way. So I don't, I don't go looking. But the pantyhose thing, really, if there's girls watching this that are in your business and that's how they found your show, like, I really feel like somebody, and I think that there are girls out there that do it, that capitalize on it. But like, with your OnlyFans, make like a special thing, like for maybe guys in pantyhose that you take pictures or something. Because I know I have a huge audience of guys that are really looking for stuff like that. I don't give it to them. But, if you want to come on my show and talk about what you like about them and what you've done, and then offer up your, that option to, have them join your thing, I would totally have you do that on my Patreon. I'm always looking for people like that because these guys are looking for it. Like I said, I don't offer that.
Oh, cool. Yeah, I would totally collaborate with you on that for sure. Yeah.
Because you have some stories, we could do a whole thing, and, or my hose.
100% I would do it. Yeah. So you, in your personal life, have you met someone like that you dated that was into pantyhose, or you just got fascinated just because of these guys?
Yeah, it was really like, like I said, everything just happens by accident with me. Most things aren't thought out. And like,
okay.
I knew I wanted a Patreon, right? And I was going to do that because I was like, I need to monetize on my show. I've been doing it for 6 years. It's very popular. I get a lot of fucking downloads and stuff. And I'm like, I'm not making any money. So, and then Corona and COVID hit, and I'm in New York City like you. So it was like lockdown, and it was like perfect time for me to start things up. So I started my Patreon, and at that time I had a caller. His name was John Smith. And he was like, he really broke it down. And he was very pushy about sending me pantyhose. He wanted to send me them. He really wanted me to see what he was talking about. And I was like, fine. And then it was right around the time I was starting my Patreon, and I was like trying to figure out how to get people. And I was like, oh, he's going to send them to me. Maybe I could like do a review. And this is like I said, this all just came into my head. And then I did it, and then I posted it. And then I'm like, but I'm like anonymous. So I'm like doing my reviews like this, right?
Right. Yeah.
Just happened because that guy sent me the pantyhose at that same time that I was doing it, and I needed content for these guys. So I just decided that was going to be it, and that's how it came about.
You were reviewing like the quality, you mean? The quality, color, right?
I don't know what the fuck I was doing. I was like, I'll just review them. I don't know. And I'm very honest. I'm not like a bait and switch person. I don't say, come join my Patreon and I'm going to be showing you me and my hot pantyhose, and then I'm not there. I'm always like, I don't even like pantyhose, guys, but if you want me to review it, I'll try. And I give them my honest review. So I would do a review of me showing like, oh, this is what I think. I'm looking at them. I probably won't like them. And then I would try them on. Then I come back to the video and be like, oh, this is what I thought. And I thought they were too short, that kind of shit. Because it turns out that guys that like pantyhose, they just love to hear women talking about them. That's what I think women don't understand. Like, if you have a boyfriend out there that's really into pantyhose, it really is an easy thing to make him happy, and just fucking do it. Because he just like I said, these guys tell me like just me talking about it, they love it. Like, it's not really a hard thing to do. So I would just do these reviews, and to me they were so unhot, but they liked it. It was interesting to them because, like I said, they really want women to talk about it with them because they feel very alone, and these are guys that like women, right? So they're looking for.
Do they ever wonder though, like, like how we feel in terms of like say we like our legs. Like I like that I have the no makeup look. Like I don't want pantyhose to like change the way it almost looks artificial to me.
That's what they like.
So what do you guys say about that? They're like, oh, well, we prefer the
there's something about that. Oh yeah, they can't, and it's like a drug to them. They, it just takes that leg to a whole other level. And most of them need that. They need the two. together. They don't want your no makeup. Like, they're not impressed with that. They'd be way more impressed if you just threw it on and did it. And I don't know, why not? I mean, I know that you didn't like that one guy that did it, but I think if you really liked a guy and he was into that, well, why wouldn't you throw on a pair of hose for him? I've never had a boyfriend that was into that. But, and I said this to these guys, like, if I did, I think as far as fetishes are concerned, it's a really easy one to take. Like,
yeah,
it's like a guy that really loves lingerie. Haven't you dated that guy? It's kind of fun. You get to like put stuff on and you know that like you're extra super hot to him, you know? So you put on pantyhose and he thinks you're like extra super hot, you know? It's kind of easy.
Yeah, you got a good point. I think it just means that like, I think it means like when you're not wearing it, and I don't know who's ringing me right now. I think they just ring because they know I'm here.
I get someone right.
But anyway, so no, but it just makes me feel like in everyday life, if I'm not wearing lingerie and I'm not wearing pantyhose, then I'm not attracted to that person. Like if you're dating them, you know?
Oh.
That's what I think about. I'm like, God, am I just like ugly when I'm not doing those things you like?
Someone just explain that his wife is like, oh, you don't like me for me kind of thing. It's like that thing. I think
like you don't like my own legs. Yes, exactly. Like, right. That's
right, you're not being attracted to me, you're being attracted just to the pantyhose. Yeah, I get that. And I feel like I've heard that from guys. And that's a really, I think, normal reaction, right? And probably what all these women that are not into it for their guys are thinking, right? But what I think is like,
also the guys do know that. They've talked to you about their complaints from the girl.
Yeah, they're women express. Most of these guys are with women. They've been with women, and their issues are their women think like you. And I'm always like, I mean, but that's not the case. Like, it's your legs with the pantyhose. Do you know what I mean? It is still you. It's just you with the pantyhose. So, but I think some women get stuck on that, you know?
And that's why I love you to translate that, because I feel like you can break it down for us girls.
Yeah. For me, we have our get stuck on it. Sometimes it takes somebody outside of the situation to say it. You know what I mean?
Yes. Yeah. And you said it perfectly. It's you with that. But what about you without it?
What do they like? Yes, but they like it more. And who cares? I don't know. Who cares?
But you can't wear pantyhose all the time. That's my point.
No, but you should, like, I really think, you know, I don't know. What's the longest relationship you've ever been in?
Like 2 years and a little bit of change.
Yeah, me too. I haven't been with someone for 10 years. So I always tell these guys, like, listen, I think, like, you know, most of the people I'm talking to, these are guys that have been married for, you know, 20 years, right? A lot of the times. And so I think it's really easy for partners on both ends, on every level, to get complacent and to just not try so hard because, you know, you got that person in the bag. So I get why women are like saying what you say. But like in the beginning, how hard is it to do it? And I think it is really.
Yeah, in the beginning, it's probably easier than down. Yeah.
Got to work at stuff like that. I think that really helps, you know, work at really giving your partner what they want, and they'll be more likely to give it to you. Because a lot of times when the guy's calling up and he's talking all about how his wife won't do this and his wife won't do this, I'm like, well, what would your wife say if I was talking to her? Probably that you don't compliment her and you don't take out the trash and that you don't listen to her problems. You know, it's like, it's double-sided in these long-term relationships. It's very common relationship problems. But I think if you meet a guy and he has a fetish and you decide to hang your hat there and that's who you want to date, like, you should work at it a little bit and give to that person what they want, you know, for them. And then they'll be more likely to do stuff back, right? That's what I would think.
Yeah. So what is what's the guy that you dated that's the biggest like thing that you had to accommodate like with?
Oh, like a fetish sexual, like,
it could be a fetish or it could be something that sexually, or like.
I had a boyfriend. I wrote a book. I wrote and drew a book. It's like a cartoon book. It's like
that's cool. What's the name of the book?
It's called The Cartoon Misadventures of a Total Train Wreck, and it's a bunch of love gone very wrong stories.
Oh.
I'll send you one. But in there's a guy, and it's like we called him Dirty Dave. He had like really bad body odor, but I was like really into him, and he was a total hippie, and he had a major getting it up problem. But I have to say, I was so horny for this guy because he really was like my father reincarnated. Like you know when you're working something out and you have that intense sexual attraction, it's like coming from something bad. He was like what he was like my dad coming straight to my face, and I was so horny for him that I'd be like, and he would have these cock rings and everything to try and get himself up, and I was like, I don't care, just put it in. Like I'd fuck him soft and get off because I was so horny for him. And I have to say that changed his problem. Like he got over his problem, and I really believe it was because I just didn't even care. Like I was never like, why aren't you getting up? Like, why can't you get it up? Aren't you attracted to me? Like it never became a conversation. I was just kept treating him like a sex object, and I was so into him and I just fucked him even soft and got horny that his dick started to work. And then he was like hard all the time, and then he was like freaked out because he obviously had a getting it up issue because he was like so repressed sexually, and he was horrified by the pull that sexual energy had over him. But so that was something to conquer, but it wasn't really that hard because I was so horny for him I didn't even care. But that was like an issue for sure.
You're a powerful person.
Well, in that scenario, please, at my story, I have had just nothing but bad relationships. I've had a lot of commitment-phobes. There was a guy that would only put his dick in halfway. That was like one of my friend's favorite stories because this guy, like, he was like my best friend, and we started dating. It was like when Harry met Sally, and I was like so into him, and we'd like make out for hours, and he'd put his dick in halfway, and then he wouldn't move it, and he was like, I can't put it all the way in because it's going to be too serious. Like he's such a psycho.
That is commitment phobic for sure.
Yeah. So any girls out there, if you had guys that won't fuck you or they can't get it up, trust me, it's not about you, it's about them. I've had a million of those kinds of scenarios, and that's always like commitment issues, and so I've dealt with a lot of like weird shit. But when I would get into guys and all my dysfunctional stuff, like I would be like so fixated on them, I would just put up with whatever it was. Yeah, I played the halfway in game for a really long time until he dumped me.
Oh, it sounds like you really went in with all your heart, though. Like despite of any problems that came up, which is cool. A lot of people can't put themselves all in like that, and give it their all.
I don't agree. I don't think I was putting I really do think it's really amazing when people put their heart all in, and those are people who really fall in love and have real relationships. I was somebody that was incapable. I had commitment issues myself, and really that intense attraction and the addiction to that person and not being able and being so hyper fixated on them, and even though they were so bad, that was all like, none of that was like real love or me really opening my heart. That was just me staying in relationships that I knew were safe, that I would never have to really fall for them, or and so I don't think any of that was me being ballsy. I think I was a fucking wuss.
Oh, right. So did you have that awareness at the time when that was happening?
No, towards the end, before I, like towards the end, but then what happens, even though it intellectually, it doesn't matter. Every other part of you is still stuck on this like terrible story that you're living out, and you can't figure it out, and you can't get out of it. So at some point in my life, I figured out my problems and issues, but it didn't mean that they still weren't working out subconsciously. So I would say, someone asked me the other day in my Q&A, like, have you ever fell in love, and is your feeling of love different now? Like, I don't think I've ever fallen in love, and but with my son I have, and that was what was so amazing about having a child for me, because that kind of love was very easy for me because it's just unconditional, whereas the love of a man and really throwing yourself into it, like you said, oh, I really admire you, because I would admire I admire people that do that too, that just go all in, and that's what you have to do in a real relationship. But I don't believe, if I look back and I'm honest with myself, that I ever really did that. I think I was always phobic and had a lot of fear of that, because I had a big, deep, intense sense of like a fear of abandonment and all that stuff. So I don't think any of my stuff was, I was ballsy in that I was like crazy, and, I did work stuff out. I do think like
you worked it out. Maybe that's what it was.
Yeah, because you don't want to be the person that has all these commitment issues and you're just staying home alone and you're never having bad relationships, because there is something about those bad relationships. You learn from each one, and it does help, right? That's the only way you get data on yourself. So you know, in that sense, it was beneficial because I did learn from all those bad relationships, but I don't necessarily think I really put my all into them.
Okay. Well, that's good to know. So what about what happened after 34? Because you said 34 is when you stopped drinking and
Yeah.
sex changed. So what happened?
It's like, listen, I had just as good of sex after. I had a very long-term booty call. I had, you know, but I have to say, like, my numbers went down a lot. Like, you know, I fucked a lot of guys when I was drinking, and I did a lot of crazy things. And then I remember my first sober date, it was so fascinating to me because I went out with this guy. It was a friend of mine who's very wealthy, set me up with like one of his wealthy, like Uber, like, and he was from like old money kind of guy. And he was really handsome and put together. And I went on a date with him, and I was sober. It was the first one I ever went on. And he was so dull and boring. He was saying like rude things about my friend to me, which I found completely inappropriate. And then we went back to his house, and I was like, whatever. And it was really nice, but I was like, whatever, because he was such a fucking asshole. And he was like, and I got home and I thought to myself, like, wow, you know, if I was drinking, I would have really, like, that whole situation. There's something about alcohol that adds an excitement to things that isn't there. Do you know what I mean? So I'm like, if I was drinking on that date, I would have, at his house, we would have been fooling around, and then I would have been sweating him. And then when it didn't work out, I would have gone through all this torment when I would just come to the conclusion as a sober person right there and then that he's not right for me. Like, there was no more wasting my time. Do you know what I'm saying? Because I had the truth of the situation in front of me right there and then. So it was like very eye-opening for me. And so I dated less, I slept around less. I always wanted sex, so I would have like long-term booty calls with the same guy. That's who I'd get laid with, because I wasn't like just sleeping with random people or like, you know, drunk anymore. And slowly over time, you know, I got better, but it definitely changed who I slept with, like, because I'm not fooling around with someone if I don't have to be in love with them. I'll still have booty calls now, you know, and just sex for sex, but it's with someone that I know. And but I don't sleep around as much. No, without alcohol, nobody would. Sorry.
So true. Yeah.
Yeah.
So the guys that they're like, I guess, booty calls, are you cool with you having more than one booty call, and are you cool with them having the same thing?
Yeah, I have cheated in the past. Like I told you, I've had like fucked up relationships in the past, but like by nature, who I am is I'm very monogamous by nature. I don't need variety. I personally like to fool around with the same person that I know and feel comfortable with. That's like the best sex for me. But when I have a booty call, I could give a shit what they do. And it's weird. That's one thing I would say, like a kink that I have that I didn't realize until my show, is like I started to have these guys on my show that would talk about like, oh, yeah, I really like my girlfriend to go out and like fuck other guys and stuff. And I started to think to myself, because I had this one booty call for like a really long time, and he was a total player. And I'd always be like, oh, did you just like fuck someone before? And he'd be like, no, never. And he'd always be like, no. And I'd be like, you don't understand. Like, if you told me yes, like that would help the situation. Like that would just like be a turn on if you just came here after, you know. So I started to think like, oh my God, I think I have that thing. Like,
that's cool. That's a cool self-discovery. Yeah.
And I was like, oh, I think I have that too. I think like knowing that my booty call, like he fucked other people, like there's something hot in that kind of scenario for me. But like these guys just think that's too good to be true. So he would never tell me. But I'm like, after all this time of us being together, like at this point, it would like make it a little bit more interesting.
What about you watching him in the act? Would you want that?
What was that?
Would you want to watch him in the act?
You know, I've never taken it that far, so I don't know, but I definitely think that would be maybe on the table. I don't know how, like I said, it was always something that I would just jokingly say to my guy, but like in like any booty calls now, like if they're with other women, I don't mind listening to it, but like they don't really like to tell you. Like it's weird. But I think in my next relationship, I would put that on the table at some point. I don't think I would go into it like right off the bat like that, but when things start to become like every day, why not throw something like that in? That's like my thing I would do, you know? I don't know.
Yeah, I think you're right. It would make things a little bit more interesting, you know, especially if you've had sex with them so much already anyways.
Yeah, but
you're not gonna be serious, then why not do something like in the other zones of.
Yeah. For sure. So I don't, when it comes to booty calls, I don't care who they're with. I could care less. I could talk to them about their girlfriends that they meet that they like. It doesn't matter to me. I don't have a successful booty call for me. I have absolutely no feelings with, and it works for me with guys that I've been down the emotional route with, like, and it ended and things, and so I could just like still fool around with them, but it's not about anything other than sex. That's the way
that makes sense to me. Like,
yeah.
I could see that working even for myself if I had a different job. If I had a different job, I could see that working for myself too.
Yeah.
And you gave it your all emotionally and it didn't work out. Like, I would be comfortable with that too. Yeah. I don't know if I would be comfortable with them sleeping around with other people, because I don't know if I'd be okay with being the only one, them being the only one, but I'm not their only one. I'm not sure why that would bother me. Probably because of safety or something.
I'm very active. I'm a hypochondriac. Like, I make jokes. Like, I mean, the hypochondriac is the perfect person to date, because they're the ones that really take condoms seriously. Like, I really use condoms. Like, I won't let my booty call guys' dicks touch my leg, because my gynecologist told me, like, you could get a lot of diseases just from like outside stuff. You know what I mean? It's not like it has to go inside. So I'm like really safe. So I don't care about
like
that.
The rubbing. I hate when they ask to rub it. That's so annoying. It's the same thing to me. Like, I didn't know about the leg thing though. You can get something from just the leg.
No, but you know what, I was joking. But
I was about to say. I was like, no way. Like, no way.
You could get like you could get warts that way, herpes. So I don't fuck around like that with these guys. It's more, and honestly, like my booty call guy that I have now, we set things up we set like time limits up for fun. Like, and I'm like, okay, you have 9 minutes. And in 9 minutes, I come, he comes out the door. Like, it's like a service call. It's not, it's very different than if I was with someone that I really like. So I don't really care about them being with anybody else, because I'm safe and it doesn't matter to me. And I'm not really thinking about that.
Yeah. Yeah. So we're here now at the hour. So I wanted to see if there's anything that so we did touch about the myth about sex work, right? You answered that one, right? Yeah. And then I wanted to know if you looked up to anyone, like someone that inspires you.
Who do I look up to? Like a celebrity?
Whoever you look up. There's 2 questions left, so this is the first of the 2 left. So I would love to know, who you look up to, like in terms of in the present moment, like someone you aspire to be, maybe, or someone maybe in business or in like a relationship you look up to, anything, whatever that's inspiring you at the moment.
Yeah, I don't really know. I mean, like, I'm like, oh, Jane Fonda as like a celebrity. Like, I always love anything about her because she was like so badass and she was so honest. Somebody older than me and really was before her, like she was really born before her time, and she was like revolutionary for women and amazing and so like strong and powerful, but not in the sense like, oh, I'm a feminist and I fucking hate men. I mean, she's just like sort of done it all. So I love women like that, but I just really feel like I grow and learn and admire on all levels, like at all different times. Like and nowadays with social media, like you could read someone's post and be like, oh, like that was like that person's super impressive. There's just so many people to admire now. I can't pick just one person, but I feel like I learn and take from a lot of different people, and that's what podcasts are good for, and I love to read people's autobiographies. I learn from the people that call my show. So I don't know, I can't pick any one person.
That's a great answer though, because you're right, we're so lucky to be in this time.
Yeah,
we can have access to so many people and
for
get
sure.
inspired very easily, whereas before maybe you'd have to search long and wide and all that. So that's a good observation. And then the last question, you can answer any of these. So I always want to know what people's image of an ideal man is, or an ideal woman, or an ideal society. So you can answer one, or you can answer all 3. It's up to you.
Ideal man, right? For me.
Ideal man, yes. What is your ideal man?
And I don't know. I think like, I definitely know he's not an alpha. Okay. But I don't think that.
Not an alpha. Okay.
Definitely not an alpha, but he needs to be like the strong beta. Like I just think, you know, I'm like, as an alpha, right? I would go to the gym and the biggest douchebag in the room would always like make a beeline to me. Like I've always been that person. I always attract alphas and alphas always like me, but I don't like them. I like
competition you don't like, right?
It's not that it's the competition. It's just that they don't make me, they bring out the alpha more. Like as an alpha, and the thing I want to feel like is less alpha. I want to feel like feminine with a guy. And it's only a very specific type of man that could bring that out in me. So the guy that wants to spar with me, I fucking love that. I need that. I need guy friends in my life. I have girlfriends in my life, but I need guy friends because I need to be able to release the alpha in me without the, you know, girls are like horrified by my pushiness sometimes. So that's what my guy friends are for, but I don't want that in a relationship. What I like is a man that doesn't sort of battle me and treats me like a girl. And that guy is more a beta, but not a, like, I think people think beta is like weak. And to me, it's not. There are like just quiet, strong betas, you know, and that is like always typically my best friends and my girlfriends. And that would be the kind of guy that would be right for me. That's the kind of personality type that I really get along with. They're strong and they're powerful, but they're like more passive to my aggressive, you know? And I think what's most important to me, because I love being alone and I'm super independent and I'm fine, is if I'm going to like hang my hat with somebody, like they just have to be someone that's super interesting and someone I really like to talk about and someone who does like to talk, you know, and who would be like a friend, right? And then the sex comes and then you add sex into it and there you go. But if I don't have that with somebody, what's the point? You know, I've been single for 5 years since my son was born. And it's just now that I'm starting to think I would date again. But like I said, it would have to be somebody who I find interesting. And I don't find a lot of people interesting. I mean, I found most people interesting if I talk to them and interview them for an hour, but I want someone to, you know, be interesting to me and like bring something to the table and keep me company and occupied and make me feel like a girl. So that's my perfect guy. Does that make sense?
It's also, it's also different when it's a podcast. Like you're interviewing for only a short amount of time, but when you're living with someone, you see them every day, then it's hard to keep that interest. And I like what you said about beta, because I actually did have a preconceived idea of what beta is. And I thought beta does mean the lesser of the two. Like you can be a regular person and then you can be alpha or beta.
For sure.
Beta is like the low end, supposedly.
No, I don't think so. Did you watch the that documentary called Last Dance or Last Dance with Michael Jordan and Scottie Pippen?
No. Oh, were they comparing the two guys?
No, it's not. No, it's like the best documentary ever on Netflix.
And I like them. I gotta watch that. I like them both. Yeah.
Up 5 minutes in, and it's a 10-series thing. It's really about the Chicago Bulls and Michael Jordan, and it's really just about greatness. It's like the best documentary ever. You will love it. You'll be so happy. But
they both played for the Bulls. That's right. Yeah.
But you'll see, like Michael Jordan was like fucking beta, and Scottie Pippen was more of the quiet type. But by no means was he not as hardcore, right? But he expressed it differently. He was more quiet. He was more passive. But you wouldn't say that he's a fucking weakling, you know what I mean?
He was understated.
It's just in a different way. And like I said, most of my girlfriends are that's the kind of women I'm attracted to, and they become my best friends. The more that are just like a little bit more laid back and beta, but the fact that they do what I want over, you know, I don't look at them as weak for doing that. I look at them as like cooler than me. Like they don't care as much as the stuff that I do. You know what I mean? So I just don't see betas that weak. I think that that's a wrong sort of assumption, you know, and I think, you know, if you're alpha female, you keep going for those alpha men, but it's just like clashy. I don't want to spar every fucking day. I mean, I like to spar, but I do that in other areas of my life. I like a guy that, you know, like I said, treats me like a girl, not like a, you know, the debate.
Like one of the guys. Yeah. Not one of the guys.
Exactly. Yeah. And I love feeling like one of the guys. I need that in my life. So I always have a lot of guy friends, but that's not how I want to feel in my relationship. And
that's not satisfactory in the relationship part. Yeah.
No, and most guys make me feel like one of the guys. Perfectly said.
I love that though, because I don't consider myself alpha. I wish I were, but I'm unfortunately I'm just not. And I like that perspective to know what it must be like for someone like you to need that so bad. Yeah.
It's a lot harder though. I mean, I would say, oh, you should be glad that you're not an alpha, but I think that, men are very different now in your age range. But for me growing up, I mean, it's very hard. Like, look at poor Chelsea Handler. Like, I mean, it's just very hard for a certain kind of woman to find a guy in her age range that's going to want that kind of woman at the end of the day, because it's not who they were raised by. Guys always want to date their mommies. It's just a different generation. And it just,
she's a catch though, such a catch.
Of course, but a lot of guys just don't want to hear it. Like, how many guys, I have guy friends like this, and they would be like, I would be their worst nightmare to date, and I get that. And thank God I wasn't given this personality and the intense desire to have a husband for the rest of my life, because I would have wound up in a ditch. Like, thank God I was given this personality and like a very independent, free spirit that I could care less if I'm alone. I actually love being alone. So, because it is harder for somebody like me in my age to find a guy that is going to fit that bill. But it exists and it's fine, but it's harder because you will fare better. I think you just fish out of a bigger pond if you're not an alpha female, because men are more alpha by nature, you know what I mean? And the man wants to be the man, and and you'll be the girl.
Yeah, no, it's gotta be a tough way, because who doesn't love more independence, like being a whole woman in that way? But at the same time, yeah, you're not gonna have an easier time to have the balance within two people. Yeah.
Right.
I get it. But there's good in both worlds. Like,
alpha, you're good for an alpha. And there's a lot more alphas, I think, than betas. And that, is the reason why it was always harder for me. Whereas, like I said, a lot of alphas would like me. I think they see it as a challenge. They love that I spar with them and treat them like shit. I'm not afraid of them. And, and then they're super attracted to me. But it's like, there's no way I'm going to date that. I don't take that seriously. There's like like I said, they're making me like you said, feel like a man. But for you, I think it's better to be a beta, really, if anything.
No, you know what? I'm going to like stay away from the extremes though. Like, I rather just be like a regular person, like in these categories.
Yeah.
And find a regular person. Like I don't need to prove anything. I don't need them to prove anything. Like, as an alpha, no, none of that. Like, and hopefully down the road we'll get away from those labels, because that whole feminine masculine thing is still kind of a label too, like where the guy has to be alpha. Like, who says we have to be anything, really? You know what I mean?
So, but people do. Like, I mean, I was always super opinionated. I always knew what I wanted. I remember buying a boy's bicycle when I was really little. My father being horrified. It wasn't a boy's bicycle to me. It was just the bicycle that I wanted. I didn't care that there was a bar in the middle. Like, I didn't see that. You know what I mean? I never looked. I was never like put in that box, and I was always an outlier, always an outer box thinker. But most people, the majority of people aren't, and they do have those labels. And so for people in my generation, I mean, you're just not allowed to have opinions or be outspoken or know what you want. You get a lot of bad words associated. And so
that's unfortunate. Yeah.
Yeah, it is what it is. Whatever. I've dealt with it all my life. It is, but I think things are changing, and I think women are going to be way more powerful, and they more are now. All my younger guy friends are like whipped to their girls. Their girls are treating them like shit. They don't want relationships, like, and they all do. The guys are the ones wanting the relationships. The girls are like, no way, and the guys are sweating it. And it's just like, it's so opposite what I grew up in, and it's so great.
But I don't know if I'd want it to swing the opposite way either, like where just the power dynamics change. Like, it'd just be nice if it was more even keel, like a balance. I feel like that's the harmony is what keeps peace in the world more than anything,
But I think there's overcorrection.
Overcorrection, yes.
Yeah, when anything changes, and right now, like that, maybe that, all this women power and all that, is an overcorrection, and then eventually,
right, yes,
have to expect that time, and those things to happen. And I think that's what's happening now. But yeah, I do think it'll be more moderate, because if not, no one's ever going to hook up, and there'll be no more kids, and then there'll be no more people.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Like, I always am looking 100 years. Like, I mean, there has to be a switch back, or else the human race doesn't exist. You know, it doesn't move on. So I think things will correct itself. And my whole point is that I keep saying to you is you are, you know, consider yourself lucky to be a young person now than when I was growing up, because it was a lot harder, but I think it's easier now.
Yeah, totally. I'm grateful. Yeah. I've really enjoyed this. I feel like I've gotten to know you, and hopefully like you said, your audience will get to know you as well. I didn't bring like your son or anything into it because I just figured those are like too personal in your personal life. But if there's anything else you want to close and share, otherwise I feel like we got a lot. Like, I'm so glad with everything you were open to telling me.
Yeah, no, I loved it. I love having these kinds of conversations. It's fun for me. No, the only thing I want to share is that you're going to, like, I think a lot of people listening to this are people that listen to my show, and I want you to come back on and do a Patreon thing with me. We're going to do that pantyhose thing.
I would love to.
All right, so set up like your OnlyFans. I don't know how it's set up OnlyFans. Like with Patreon, I set up a special tier just for that. Do something with your OnlyFans where you figure out how you're going to cater to them, get it together, and then we will set up a time and we're going to do it because they love, and me and you will just rap about like what you were rapping before, like what these guys like to do, what you like, what's the difference. I mean, they just, so
yeah, we can, because it was a small portion of what we talked about today, but we could definitely elaborate on the stuff that we talked about for sure. Yeah.
And it's my Patreon, it's my extra content that they love, and they love to hear women having those. I put my sister and my cousin on once when they were drunk over my house. We do roundtables with them, and it's just suburban housewives talking about pantyhose, and my guys love it. Okay,
bro, so, you're not suburban, but they are.
Right? My sister and her my cousin are. They would come in from New Jersey and then talk about it, so they love that. So we'll hook that up. A lot of my listeners will want to listen. Just set it up where you have a description, like, and then I have a special thing, like, this is what I offer people that have this fetish. You know, I don't, you know, just so that they.
Oh, I can totally do that.
And listen, even better, let me tell you this, because my guys love to help out, and like, why not put it out to like my audience when we talk, like, what would they like and what should you offer on there? You know what I mean? Like, we do something like that. So it doesn't have to be so professional. We'll go into it. I'm always super honest. We'll go into it pitching it like, you have your OnlyFans, you want to do this, you have your own experiences. We'll talk about those experiences. Then you'll say that you'll do stuff on your OnlyFans. These are the things you're thinking about. Does anybody have any stuff that they want? You know what I mean? And we'll do it like that. So it's to drive traffic to you, but also to help you figure out what these guys are going to be looking for.
Oh my God. Yeah, you're the best. Oh my God. This is why I love alphas, right? I mean, they're so helpful.
It happened. I told you that was my middle name. I like cooking stuff up. It's very easy for me, and I like to help people. It's easy for me, and it's what I enjoy. So, and I like you. I think you're super nice and open and honest, and so why not throw stuff your way? It's perfect. It's what my guys need anyway. So it's like the perfect thing.
Yeah, that's so cool. I'm so glad we met each other. Yeah, so cool.
Super fun. I never do this, so it was fun for me. Let me know when you're going to air it.
I will. I'm going to let you go on with your day, because I know you said you had a busy day.
On it. My face is thing, right?
No, it was not in it, and you look great. You're hot, and everything is great. So I'll talk to you later. Yeah, I'll talk to you later.
And then I'll send you the link to set up. I'll email you about it.
You got it. Okay.
Bye.
Okay, bye. Bye, Kathy. Bye. If you're watching on YouTube, be sure to like, subscribe, and to ring the bell for notifications. You will be getting notifications after you ring the bell for the future episodes. I will be linking everything down below. Check out my Patreon for early bird episodes. If you'd like to be on here yourself, then that's also a possibility. Just email me. I have all my information, like I said, down in the description. Have an awesome day, guys.